One thing's for sure, if there's any specific property that Atlas truly loves and respects, it's certainly Persona 3. Having read the Persona 3 manga for the first time, by the way, I made a 3-part video on the ending phase and its wonderful interpretation of it. Amazing! Check those out if you haven't already, the link's below, and I'll be doing more coverage on the manga, so subscribe. But I feel it's pretty faithful and improved upon in many ways. The topic of this video, the Persona 3 movies, which I had seen prior to reading of the manga and revisited for making this video. It's funny because each of the versions of Persona 3, from games to movies to the manga, there are aspects of each that I like the most for interpretations of certain moments more than all of the rest. And I really do think the manga and movies are underrated, or maybe even not known to exist, and I want to shed more light on them. Now that begs the question, why should you watch the Persona 3 movies? After all, y'all already know the story of Persona 3 anyways, but like this, oh, you'll really want to, and we're done here. So, the reasons? Well, the beautiful execution on the relationship dynamics between Junpei and Chidori, as well as Makoto and Aigis in a super strong way, and even especially with Shinji and Ken. They're done in a way that really highlights their growth together, standing out the absolute most. But when I say these movies love the pairs of Junpei and Chidori and Makoto and Aigis, they love them, bro. Like, the amount of justice and service and improvement from any other version of Persona 3 is actually insane, man. But the other reasons, the fresh ways they go about setting up scenarios and plot elements with many whole new scenes, additional moments to existing ones, or even a removing of some unneeded ones the game had just for intensifying all the others. There's a stellar art and animation quality that is actually what a Persona fan would want from an entirely 2D experience. As stylish, flashy, and intelligent in color and lighting range, fitting all moments of emotion from hype to sorrow to mystery as you'd expect. Now, I'm not the type of person to think 2D art and animation is always going to be better than 3D. I really don't think that at all. I really think as long as it's well done and it's quality, then I'm fine with it, even if they have both in one. And also, actually, these movies have a lot of new music that fits into the OST, hitting the right Persona 3 vibe notes and hype emotional approach to the Nyx fight and conclusion all the way throughout the rooftop scene. And most of all, the best consistent amount of well-written and executed characterization for Makoto Yuki, considering he can be a whole character now over a player-controlled quote-unquote silent Protag character. A presentation of him like no other. And I think that's a good place to start, yeah? So if there's any version of Persona 3 that truly captures every aspect of Makoto Yuki's character, it's these movies. And it's just another reason why when I think of P3's story, I can't possibly only think of what any one version does, but all of them, and what they all excel at more than others, a culmination of it all into one essential tale. The movies not only take what is gleaned from the P3 game's core themes, writing decisions, and ideas, but they fully amplify them all as he is his own full character that must carry himself on his own throughout the journey. And we are here just to watch it all go down without the shackles of gameplay that alter pacing and extend the game over a long stretch, or having minuscule things added into it for points for Makoto's character that don't really add much potency that the real smaller details the game had do, even if they technically added something. Like, for example, using the multiple weapon types in FES, or the reason for having only him being able to be controlled was to feel more connected to Makoto Yuki. Like, no, the gameplay became so much more difficult in a negative way with that latter option. And don't get it twisted, I'm a huge proponent for the gameplay reflecting narrative emphasis. Series like The World Ends With You does it incredibly well, almost perfectly, one of the best I've ever seen in RPGs and in games period. But if it's not properly executed to the point where it becomes such a big hindrance, not to mention with other bad game balancing choices, it's not worth it and just not fun. That's why they changed it in the other versions in the first place. People struggled and disliked the uncontrollable party members and bad balancing of a good chunk of FES's combat so much for almost 2 decades. I don't know why it's suddenly becoming seen more as charming or seen as good elements of FES. No, they were unfun and bad. Not all aspects of the gameplay was unbalanced, but there was a lot that was. Like, it shouldn't be seen as charming or endearing anymore, or a classic to after grinding in Tartarus for hours to get robbed by something badly designed and then lose 4 hours of progress. Like, no, that's not okay, it's not good. And contrary to popular belief, if people aren't enjoying something, then in many cases they won't really care about what deeper subtle nods it has, because not everyone is about difficult gameplay. A lot of people just want an easier time so they can really just fully dive into the story, which is why people still liked P3, because the story was just that great despite the poor combat gameplay experience for a majority of the game. game for many parts of the game. Then you have other elements like fusion spells and third G, and him being the wild card and even being the big reason for the final boss at all, and your last gameplay spell with Great Seal. Those were the exact same writing to gameplay reflections, but way more potent. A lot of the weird critiques for Reload are, well, weird, but that's a tangent more expanded on in a future video. Point being, Makoto is so well written, not because of multiple weapon types or only being able to control Makoto in FES. Those are just either good sprinkles or bad tasting icing on the cake. He's so well written because of his strenuous personal journey of discovery, messing with the paths of the ones closest to him, aligned with the overarching constant evolution of the world and the dangers within. This movie allows Makoto to be much more front facing, both literally and figuratively, creating a space for them to fully flesh out Makoto's character arc of being dead inside, agreeing to fight, and only fighting quote unquote bravely due to no care for his own well-being, and frustrating some of C's because of it, leading to some great new scenes in these movies, to accepting people into his life and heart, dealing with loss, dealing with new loss at an age where he now perceives what's happened, unlike when his parents passed away, where we do get to see, and wondering if it's really worth to have these attachments if they'll just be lost, and then finally finding the value and beauty in the finite, hoping his friends realize the importance in it through each and every single one of their paths, different layers between them and all, us directly watching his behavior, his own decisions and speech without our input, his feelings and ways of approaching others we've never seen, and communicating and reacting in such emotionally powerful ways, expressed with top tier voice acting that's so unsuspecting. It's like someone who we've known is reborn in such an astounding and special way that feels real, makes it really feel like him and not just us in his shoes. Everything we get to see from him just feels so much more strong and real and palpable. And even of course his choice of unpredictable humor, both dry and actually genuinely good, along with pure honesty. The reason why that means so much is because he already was a strong character and so important to Persona and Atlas period, even being a quote unquote silent protag, which many people think automatically nerfs and restrains main characters from true ability to flourish in a narrative and its storytelling, which to a degree I do understand that, and it definitely can, which is why I feel like if you're going to do silent protagonists or main silent, they'll need to be exceptionally clarified and identified, and not just a being for the players to self-insert into if you're really trying to create something real with them, something real that's integrated heavily into the main story. Whereas without being a silent MC, I mean, the protag will just have complete room to impose themselves onto the tale, and that's always great, as long as it's written well, you know? So like I was saying kind of in the last section, these movies clearly display willingness to be its own entity, still with proper justice, and that extends not just through writing and having subtle differences here or there in scenes, but taking very notably different methods to reach similar or the same ends to truly enhance and provide a unique experience in a way that only a movie can really do, because they don't have to worry about gameplay sections and only have anywhere from 2 to 4 hours each at most. They have that range and work with that, and they killed it, man. Some of these original moments were to replace narration or text info dumps or things they must discuss from not being a game in nice ways, and plenty of new additional scenes to push the narrative's pacing better or just completely tap into any of the characters' unique experiences and feelings shown off in an impactful way. Like legitimately, you won't have to worry about feeling like it's a retread, because each of these movies feels so special to each portion of the story that each movie is telling. Not only do they have to fill the gaps from not having as much social link focus because of streamlining it, but they make use of it so well because they're not trying to do it all at once. Meaning with each normal and original or fusion we get for each scene, it's all tastefully done because they take their time properly. For example, although Makoto wasn't at the point of caring at the start, they gave Yukari an arc similar to what she traditionally has for Mitsuru. She is very critical and distasting towards Makoto because of how little he cares for what he's doing. Although he's strong and gets the job done, she feels as though he doesn't care and gets upset on how indifferent he can be as long as he gets to fight. So it's almost like a fusion between her critique of Mitsuru and Akihiko, but also a clear defining passivity towards Makoto. Like during the first full moon event with the runaway train, Yukari asks why he's so calm, and Makoto's like, oh, you want to stop the train? And then he stops it, causing her to just stare at him. Later on, when she's spurring them on to find out more about the rumors of the comatose students behind Port Island Station, only Junpei is receptive and properly discussing back with her, while Makoto Yuki just stays quiet, and it visually bothers her. And when she is wanting them to go to the station at night to stop the shadows from doing more damage to people, she becomes really passive aggressive to Makoto, saying he may not even be interested in that kind of stuff, causing Junpei to ensure that he goes. And when it's time to discuss the plan to save Fuka, they discuss it at the dorm with a couple other new things I won't say, but when Mitsuru asks if they can truly rely on Makoto and he agrees, Yukari questions him, saying she could tell he doesn't care if he lives or dies. And though her resolve isn't like Akihiko's, she still has a reason to fight, and she's scared that if Makoto keeps on like this, he'll die doing this for sure. Which, as we know how this story ends, it's very ironic. And she was right in the end, but not for the reason she feared. And I feel that's very poetic that they put that in there. But this moment causes a huge decision and change to this event and how it progresses. There's some really good new things that lead up to this arc, as it's the climax event of the first movie, but also will not say those, but I know you'll like them because you get some very precious moments. And things like this happen for each movie, like being in the dark hour at night on Yakushima with shadows amongst them. Tons of new one-on-ones with Makoto and Aigis, seeing the actual drawing that Chidori made of Junpei, similar to how the manga showed it, even if the drawing is different, as well as completely original scenes with Chidori and her mental struggles that are pretty intense, so warning you now, be ready for some real stuff. And of course, some heartbreaking moments of existentialism with Aigis that makes her moments away from something she can't take back, both against others and self-inflicting. One of the biggest things is the pure depth of anguish, anxiety, dread, and doom they feel post Ryoji's revealing of the truth. I really don't think any iteration of Persona 3 compared to how they did that. The pit they were put in and the pressure on them on what to do or even how to even live with that knowledge was highlighted more than the manga or the game's versions. Words can't express it, man. So there's to say, you'll be experiencing a whole different Persona 3, but at the same time, it's the one you love in a new and incredible way. The art and animation is so top notch, it looks better than many 2D animated shows and movies out right now. And all 4 of these released in the years from 2013 to 2016, so one per year pretty much. I know not everyone is a fan of 3D animation, even if it looks good. Some people either just won't admit, even if the quality is top tier. Personally, like I said before, I don't mind in general as long as it is blended well with the 2D stuff. But for those people that are 2D diehards, it's not even a factor to have to worry about the 3D. So let's think about some of the past Persona animation stuff to compare it to. Now, the Persona 4 animation had quality animation, even the golden animation did. Now, the OG P4 anime is a bit older, so it's not as crisp, but it still looks good with proper adaptation of the combat, funny moments, expressions, and more. The golden animation really sparkled though. Can't say for the Persona 5 anime, which came out in 2018. How did that come out so bad of an adaptation? I still can't believe they let that nonsense pass. They actually didn't care about the P5 animation. It's kind of funny, but this is just another reason why no matter what, if there's any property that Atlus will care to do justice every single time, it is Persona 3 and also SMT4 if those ever get remade. I might make a video on SMT4. I definitely probably will actually. If y'all interested, subscribe if you are. But yeah, these movies are such a visual spectacle, and even better when you get to hear all the new music to combine it with. But like to mention real quick, Ryoji is probably given the most extra characterization outside of what FES and Portable did, maybe only comparable to the manga. The mangas, the movies, and now Reload give so much more to Ryoji. Junpei for sure too, especially. Not only was he done great work, but his progression was managed even better. His bond with Hikari was severely improved from FES to be more like the manga and Reload, because in FES, I know they were always technically friends, but they made Yukari far too mean to him many times for no reason. I get that they still meant for her to truly care about him, but it was too stunted in presentation. And don't get me wrong, not saying sometimes Junpei didn't deserve her, but a lot of times it was just too much, man. So the manga and Reload did great, just like the movie, in calming her down, some towards him, but still have her roast him at times, don't get me wrong, but also added more moments of just the two hanging out or being on the same page in discussion. The most different is probably Shinji and Ken's arc, and that's probably the most different but still grueling and anxiety inducing from just how well it's still done. Mitsuru's grieving over her father is probably the actual best I've ever seen in presentation. I can go on, but I'm trying not to say specifics all the time out of respect because I want y'all to watch it if you haven't, and those that have, I hope you can geek out with me because this stuff is good. The only downside is because of the main plot of P3 being so heavy and the nature of being movies, meaning there's such limited time, some outside the main cast get little to nothing. The social links got kinda screwed over. Even some of the best like Akinari got like little or the bare minimum attention. Some are also even just setups for the placement of the main characters to be in the same place to talk about certain things. And Elizabeth's outing got rushed, but in exchange she did get a really strong original implementation overall and had a huge influence on Makoto more directly in the moments he needed it the absolute most. However, what didn't get robbed was the ending. If you're as relentlessly appreciative of the rooftop scene as I am, oh, just wait, you'll be pleased. Don't get me wrong, it is different and part of me wishes it was longer. That's also just me being a bit greedy because it was still done so well in the visuals. I just wanted more. The heart, the warmth, the love in it was just so special, man. I just love to see it, man. I love to see it. So, what have you learned? Watch the movies if you haven't. It'll be a fresh but home-like experience for you. You'll be surprised and happy. You may not like every single thing more than some other versions, but that's okay too. And if you watched them before, watch them again. And tell me what your favorite movie of the 4 was. If you stayed all the way to this point, put hashtag spring on your comment as a secret code so I know you're a real one. Subscribe to stick around for more Persona content and more content in general that you may enjoy. Hit the bell because you will not be disappointed at what you see and stay notified for it. Much love to you all, and I'll see you in the next one.